Okay, there's been some questions about how to draw straight lines in Photoshop. Now, when we actually get into using Photoshop, do a project in Photoshop, we'll cover all the little details of this. But I know how frustrating that is to try and be creating a project that you can be proud of and not knowing how to create those straight lines. So I'll just give you a few simple tricks, and then all the detailed stuff I'll leave for the week that we take on Photoshop. But I just have a new palette open up here. And probably what I think you guys are using is this paintbrush tool. If you can see in that little image hovering over, it creates really good fuzzy lines, but I can show you how to go ahead and create straighter lines. So I'm going to go ahead and select that tool, and you can see my round dot out there is my paintbrush. Right now you can see that it's pretty straight lines as far as the edge of that line. It's not blurred at all. So if you go back up here, you can see that I'm using the paintbrush tool. Up at the top, there's this little menu bar. And if I click on the dot, it says 25. That's the size of my brush. The size is the first item you're going to see. And then the hardness. The hardness is set at 100. Before, usually it's set at 0. So I'll show you what type of a line that actually creates. You can see where it kind of creates that more fuzzy line. So there's two things you want to control. The size of the brush. You can take it down even further, but you can see it still kind of looks like it's out of focus or blurry. So the size will make the line thinner, and the hardness will make the line more solid. The edges will be cleaner, it'll have less blur. So that's one way to do it. I'll be honest, I've worked in Photoshop and Illustrator, and that's about as good of a square as I can get. So I understand completely. It kind of feels like you're driving all over the road without very much control. The next tool, and this is the tool that I'd probably recommend using, is what they call the shape tool. And how you're going to see it on your toolbar is it's usually a rectangle. It may be a square or a kind of a weird polygon shape. But if the corner of each one of these tools that has a little tick mark in the corner, that's called a flyout. So if you click and hold that, you'll see this flyout menu, and you can see you can create a rectangle, a rounded rectangle, ellipse, a polygon, a line tool, and then you can do your own custom shape. For our purposes in the draw over, either the rectangle or the ellipse tool are going to be your best options. I'll go ahead and show you on the rectangle how this works. So you'll see you have little crosshairs, and you just click and drag. Now that's not a perfect square. If you're trying to get things to match up, if you had an image that you were trying to, a picture that you were trying to basically draw a box around, then you could just kind of click and drag to kind of shape however you needed it to fit that image. Now here you can see my box is filling in, so whatever you're trying to highlight would be covered up in your reverse engineer post. And again, for the shape tool, whatever tool you're using, there's going to be a flyout menu up here at the top as well. So there's two things that you'll need to take in. That you can choose shape, path, or pixels. You want to make sure that the shape is checked. Then you've got fill, which is what the box is right now, and what you want to change it to be is stroke. See how this white outline has a line through it? So what you'll do is click stroke, you'll pick your color. Let's say I want it to be yellow. Then you go back to your fill, and you can see here that you can have the line through, so you'll take it off. And then I'm going to click off to my selection tool, so you can see that's a pretty thin line and may not catch my attention in a reverse engineer post. So instead, what I'm going to do, I'll highlight that box. I'll go back to my shape tool, and you can change your stroke up here. So right now it's one pixel. You can change it to be more than that. So let's say I'll draw another box. I want it to be 70 pixels. This one's going to be quite a bit bigger. So now it's still on fill. Take the fill off, and the stroke is at 70. So from here, when the box is still selected with the blue dots around it and the framing box, you can then click on the stroke, and you can change your width till you're happy with it. So 10.14 is what it looks like. You can also go up here and click in the box and type in 5px, and it will create the level that you want. One thing that you keep in mind is that you can see rectangle 3, rectangle 2, rectangle 1 over here in the layers panel. And so if it was me, if I'm drawing multiple places, I might type in, you can just click once, see if it will do it for me. If you double click twice fast, it will open that layer. So now here you can get the words. So when I would put in here, first rectangle, and I might put in something descriptive around tree, if that's what I was trying to highlight. You don't have to do that, but it is one way to do it. One other thing that I'll show you on this selection tool panel, you might be wondering how to get those blue dots back. You can go over here and click on the different layers, and then you know that that's what you're working with. But if you want the blue dots to show up as you click, when you're in the selection tool, which is this little north, south, east, west looking compass thing at the top, you want to click Show Transform Controls. And that will give you what we call a bounding box on whatever image. So right now I'm on rectangle 1. If I click rectangle 2, there it is. That's the yellow stroke. So again here, I know that this is the yellow stroke, so I'll go back to the square. Then I can go and I see, yep, I'm on the yellow one. I want to change my stroke. Just going to type it in. I want it to be a 6 px because that's for pixels. And then it will make it bigger. And then as soon as you click away from it, that little blue bounding box line goes away. So now you can see I'm back on this black rectangle, that first rectangle around the tree that I have it labeled as. Then if you want to make perfect circles, this is always something I have students ask as well. Click on the ellipse tool. If you can draw perfect circles, you're awesome. Sometimes I can get pretty close. That one looked like it was pretty close, but most of the time I have a hard time. So if you hold, if you click, then tap, let's see, sorry, I told you wrong. Hit the shift key before you click and then drag. So shift and then drag and you'll get a perfect circle every time. And that's the same for any of the tools. If you always hold the shift key down before you drag, then you'll have perfect circles every time. Hopefully that helps. When we get to the Photoshop worksheet and project, we'll do a lot more details. You can also do shapes with the pen tool, but that's a little bit more complicated. And once we get into Photoshop, you guys will actually practice that and you guys will be pros in no time. So hopefully that helps.